Hi friends, welcome back to my channel and let's talk some non-spooky stuff. Once in a very blue moon, I do videos that aren't about horror movies, that aren't about thrillers, or aren't about anything disturbing, where actually I do think a couple on this list are disturbing, but annually I do my top 10 non-horror movies of the year. I am gonna leave all the disclaimers down below so I don't have to go through it again, but you know, films like The Whale or Tar are not out in Australia yet, and I'm going by Australian release dates because that's where I am, so that's what I can see. So if the years fluctuate here and there, that's the reason, but I'll leave all the details down below about that. I'm really excited because this year I watched some amazing movies. I think that there was just a lot of interesting genre bending movies out this year, and it was really interesting to dive into that. And then also a lot of unlikable characters. I've always liked these kinds of films, but I felt like these are really the films that rise to the top, that made the biggest impression on me this year. I'm gonna start with number 10 and go all the way to number 1, and I will give a few shout outs at the end because I cannot help myself, but let's start with number 10. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. I think a lot of people are going to be surprised that this is at my number 10 spot because I know so many of us loved this movie. This was an A24 like completely. The movie is an adventure sci-fi written and directed by the Daniels, and the plot centers around a Chinese American immigrant played by Michelle Yeoh, who discovers that she must connect with a parallel universe and different versions of herself to prevent a powerful being from destroying the multiverse. Multiverse, not something I thought I'd be involved in 2022. This movie is so hard to explain and it is just jaw-dropping. It's a ride. It's one of the most adventure-worthy, very much worthy of that title, films I've seen in forever. And there was a lot to like about this film, but what I liked about it is it wasn't only challenging to watch because it was the definition of genre bending. It was also very heartfelt and had a really interesting story at the core of it about a mother and daughter and the conflict. It was so layered and so complicated, but yet so easy to understand the story at the core of it all. And if you haven't seen it, it is out there crazy and you will not be ready. Nothing can prepare you, to be honest. But it is an adventure and it's definitely a film you want to watch with someone else because it's just, there's so much to discuss, and it's just completely zany. So if you're into like zany films that are all over the place, but make perfect sense, this is one of the only ones. So definitely check it out. I highly recommend this to everyone. I think everyone should watch this film at least once, and it's one of the only ones on this list that I would recommend for everyone. Number 9. I have a very complicated relationship with this film and I only saw it just a couple days ago at the cinema. The Banshees of Inisherin. A film I was not prepared for, and in a very different way to my number 10. This film is so dark and unexpected. It is, again, genre bending because this is like a black comedy. It's a tragic comedy, which two things that don't usually go together. But the way it's structured, it feels like you're watching like a slow burn drama, something that maybe like older generations would very much appreciate. And then it throws these like left hooks at you right for the gut. And yeah, it was a very strange experience and it hasn't quite left me, which is why it's on this list because it affected me so greatly. I found this film completely devastating. I don't want to cry, but this film really got me. It's hard to explain, but the film follows lifelong friends, one played by Colin Farrell and one played by Brendan Gleeson, and they find themselves at this strange, abrupt to their end of their friendship. It's set at the tail end of the Irish Civil War in 1923 on a fictional island outside of Ireland. It's directed by UK filmmaker Martin McDonagh, who is known for 3 Billboards, but the way that this relationship is shown, and you know what, I absolutely love when it's friendships that are at the core of a story, because it's quite rare these days, but the way that this film has this very simple storyline that is layered with all of this subtext about depression and conflict, and senseless conflict is heartbreaking. It is like one of the most heartbreaking films, and it's just there's nowhere to hide because it's shown in such plain sight. The acting is phenomenal, and it's just a film like I've never seen a film like this, I have to say. It's like gritty, it's dark in every single facet. And it kind of blew me away. It took me a while to kind of understand what I had just seen after it finished, and there are some real interesting turns in the story, but it is a very simple, straightforward movie, and it's just unlike anything I've seen, so I really wanted to put this in my top 10. It's something that really greatly affected me. I would love to hear if some of you guys have seen this film and what you thought about it, because I heard people raving about it, and I had no idea what it was about. I think I'd seen like a teaser trailer, and I knew it was about a friendship, and I knew it was set in like off Ireland, but I had no idea the darkness of the story. It is quite charming and funny, and then it hits you straight in the heart. Speaking of darkness, I put this film off for so long because I knew. Gaspar Noé, he is one of my favorite directors. I call him my favorite director, but I mean, I love a lot of stuff like meshed together, but he is definitely one of my favorite directors of all time. Love being my favorite film of his, and this film was very different. I'd probably say that this is one of the films that are at the top of my most favorite by him, but Vortex was so different for him because I assumed that this film, if you know Gaspar's filmography, you'll know a little film called Irreversible, you'll know a little film called Climax. Films that really enrage the audience, have a visceral effect on them purposefully, and this one is the complete opposite. It's highly stylized, quite like Love, but it is very real and very brutally honest. So much so that I don't feel like he had to go out of his way to make this huge statement about what was happening. He just had to let it play out, and that's all you need as the audience. Vortex is a story of an elderly couple. It stars Dario Argento and Françoise Lebrun. I'm sure I totally butchered that, so I really apologize. It's the final story of an elderly couple who are both battling with dementia. It's just their perspective, really, and the way that they splice up the screen for some of the film, or most of the film really. They have these kind of like two sides to it and both of their perspectives, and it's really interesting. As you're just watching it all play out, it's quite a slow moving movie. It's like 2 hours and 22 minutes, and it's just watching everything that you know to be true happening in devastating detail. And I thought it was going to have this epic conclusion, but it's just very devastatingly realistic and raw and detailed. I was hyping myself up to watch this movie, which I knew the subject matter and I knew it was called Vortex, so I thought it was going to be a complete spiral, and although it is in many ways, it's very pure. Yeah, so I just think it's very well done, and it's a very important film, and it's just realistic, and you don't get many films that are just plain for you to see and so truthful. So I wouldn't say I really enjoyed it, but I thought it was really effective. I know I've already got pretty dark, but I'm just warning you, it's gonna get devastating because these are the films that really affect me, and then when I go home and I go to sleep at night, they stay with me, and that's why they make these top 10 lists, because these are the films that stay with me throughout the whole year. And a film that I thought I watched last year, but I actually watched in January after Scream, strange reference, but you'll get it, is The Fallout, and this one stars Jenna Ortega, and this is the film that made me fall in love with Jenna Ortega, because I had watched Scream just before this, and I didn't really get who she was until I saw this film, and now I completely get it. And if you are a fan of her, and I'm sure you probably heard a lot of people talking about her non-stop, and you don't get the hype, watch this film and you'll change your mind. This is a devastating film, by the way. It's a drama about two high schoolers and the fallout they experience after the wake of a school tragedy, their relationships with their family, their friends, and their view of the world and how it's forever changed. It's really interesting because we've seen a lot of films, I've watched a lot of films about this subject matter and all different perspectives. You think about films like We Need to Talk About Kevin, Elephant, Knit Room, but this film was very different because it's almost like an interesting kind of like coming of age teen movie, but it just so happens that this event had just happened in their life. The only film that I can find that is kind of similar, but this film is a little bit strange, is Vox Lux. If you've ever seen that film, that's that is a very bizarre film, but it kind of deals with this strange perspective in it and how people move on throughout the trauma they've experienced, and especially Jenna Ortega's character, who's trying to come into her own and really find herself in the world, and then this happens and it changes the course of her whole life. It was just really interesting watching it unravel, and I felt it was just a very emotional piece of work that I was really glued to the screen, and I thought it was really powerful. I would highly recommend it if you can stomach it. Speaking of that, my next one is also on the same subject matter, just happened to be that they were right next to each other. And this is a film that would have come out in a different time in a lot of other countries. I think this came out in 2021 in most countries. It's still doing the festival rounds in Australia now. And I did watch it this year, and it's called Mass. This film, you should go in blind, but we've kind of already touched on the bases. It's about 4 parents who come together to discuss an event that has happened. And it's set in this church. It was filmed in like 14 days, and it is just haunting, like emotionally haunting, devastating. It's like being a fly on the wall witnessing an illegal conversation. Like, it doesn't feel like you should be there. Not that what they're talking about is illegal, but it just feels wrong to witness this kind of conversation and hear it fully play out. And it is eerie, uncomfortable, and yeah, it really messes with you. And of course, Ann Dowd's in this, who I absolutely love. I think Ann Dowd is like the unspoken Meryl Streep. Honestly, everything she touches is just magic, absolute magic, and this is no different. I don't really want to say too much more, and there's not a lot to say about this one because it is all held within 4 walls, or most of it is, but it is a really powerful conversation, and it's hypnotizing to watch, and yeah, really spooky, and again, realistic. So you know, we got that. Another film, my number 5, which is gonna be really surprising because I haven't spoken about this film yet on my channel, that I just watched at the start of this month, is Pinocchio, Del Toro's Pinocchio. I love this movie. It was so good, and I was not expecting it. I am a big fan of Pinocchio, huge fan of Pinocchio. The whole story is just outlandish, crazy, and I had no idea what he was gonna do with the character, and I just absolutely loved it. So Pinocchio, I'm sure you all know the story of Pinocchio, but Pinocchio, you know, the boy who can't lie, made of wood. And in this one, he's reimagined with stop frame animation, and Pinocchio is just the funniest in this movie, the absolute funniest. I think about like all of these cartoons or like animation things I used to watch about like Adult Swim stuff that are just so surrealist and wild, and I felt like there's like a little bit of a hint of that, or like a swirl of that in this creation, because Pinocchio is, he doesn't really understand what he is in this film. It's not like he's just like this boy magically, and it's exactly how you expect a puppet to act. There is a bit of music in this one, and there's not a lot, but what there is perfection, absolute perfection. I was very wary at the start of the film because it really has like a heavy heart on like religious subtext, but it works its way into the story, and everything that is presented kind of has a meaning and a point to it, which I thought was really good, and I just really love what they did with the characters. I thought they were so good. Wasn't the biggest fan, I have to say, of Jiminy Cricket. I know that was Ewan McGregor, but I prefer like the Disney version of that, but everything else I think was absolutely perfect and very interesting. I have a few questions about Geppetto and some things, but Pinocchio himself just made this for me. I laughed, I cried, and I laughed again, and I cried again multiple times from the start to the very end. I thought it was superb. It's on Netflix. If you have not checked it out, please watch it. Actually, I would recommend that one for everyone as well. Okay, we're at number 4, and the rest of this list, all comedy dramas, and this one is Cha Cha Real Smooth. This is a very interesting film. I did not understand where it was going, and I kind of like that. It stars Cooper Raiff and Dakota Johnson, and it's about a man who works as a bar mitzvah party host, and he strikes up a strange friendship with a mother and her daughter. I think what I found really powerful this year was not only were there like unlikable characters that I got really into and very genre bending films, I had no idea the direction a lot of these movies were going to take, and I absolutely love that. I love a satisfying movie that scratches an itch, but there is nothing better than watching a movie and having no idea where it's going. And this movie really was a slice of life movie that taught me more than I thought it was going to. I thought it was going to be very predictable, and it kind of flipped the switch on me. And it's just about this interesting relationship between these two characters that shouldn't have happened, and where it goes from there. And it's towing the line a lot of the times, and it's all these things that are not said in human interaction. A film that is kind of reminds me of a little bit is The Worst Person in the World, which didn't make this list, but I absolutely love that film. It's just all of these silent things that humans, you know, are like in the air between people, and I think it's really interesting to explore that. It feels very like White Lotus-esque. Not the same eeriness and like, you know, no dead bodies, but that kind of interesting dance that people do in silence. And it's funny, it's because it's called Jar Jar Real Smooth, but I really enjoyed it, and it's really hard to explain, but very interesting film. And if you did like The Worst Person in the World and you haven't seen it, highly recommend. Okay, top 3. I love my top 3 always. And as I said, bad characters. Unreliable narrators. Not really. You kind of see it for what it is. But if you hate following a character that is making you nervous, making you uncomfortable, and a little bit anxiety inducing, you're not going to like these movies, but I absolutely love them. Number 3 is Red Rocket. My number 1 song, I think it was my number 1 song on Spotify, was the cover that Susanna's son, who plays Strawberry in this movie, does of Bye Bye Bye. I love it so much. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. This is Sean Baker, who is one of my favorite directors. I know I've already said that, but that's why it's my top 10 list. No wonder he's in here. He did Tangerine. He did The Florida Project, which is one of my absolute favorite movies of all time. And this movie is... You follow Simon Rex, who plays an ex-porn star. Like, let me just lay it out for you. And he's like washed up at this point, and he returns to his small Texas hometown, and he struggles to try and make something of himself again, but he is just the worst. He's the absolute worst. He has no direction in life, and he finds this girl who works in this donut shop, and it's kind of about them, but it's more about him and just what a dropkick dickhead he is. It is funny, it is strange, it is, again, slice of life. Simon Rex, absolutely love him. I fell in love with him from this movie. I thought he did it so fantastically. It's kind of scary how good he played this character. If you like watching movies where you just cannot believe what you're seeing and how someone is acting, and they're digging into their own grave they're doing, and you find it kind of humorous in a very strange way, you know what I'm talking about. This film is for you. Absolutely loved it. Soundtrack is to die for. You'll never hear NSYNC and think of anything else. It's brilliant. And I absolutely loved it. But again, it is a very interesting taste, and I'm not saying that to be like, oh my god, quirks. I'm saying it, I get it. It's not for everyone. Trust me, I understand that. How could we follow that one up? I have a film that is way more widely known, recognized, and accessible, which is my number 2 spot, and very interesting. Not okay. I love this film so much. It reminds me a little bit of Ingrid Goes West. If you have seen that film, I watched that film. I've probably seen it like 20 times. Absolutely love that film. Comfort film. But it has the same kind of comedy, drama that has a real idea behind it and a real point to it. Even though it's so exciting and entertaining and bad. Like, not bad isn't a bad film, but bad, like what you're watching should not be happening. This one is directed by Quinn Shepherd, and it stars Zoe Deutsch, Mia Isaac, and Dylan O'Brien. And it's a captivating story about an ambitious woman who finds followers and fame when she poses as someone who's going to Paris. She wants to go to Paris. She is not having much luck in the work department, the friends department, the popularity department, and that's all she cares about. So she pretends like she's going to Paris to try and win people over. This is kind of based on the idea someone did pre-pandemic, where they pretended to go to Europe and they took all the photos and they put it up on their social media, and they fooled their family and friends and stuff to think that they went and did this amazing trip when they were staying at home. But disaster strikes when a event happens in Paris, a very well-known event, and she was apparently right there, right then, documented during the disaster. And now she has to make the decision if she's gonna double down or not? And what do you think she does? There's so much more to this film though. That is just the very tip of the iceberg. And as you're watching again, someone slowly dig their own grave, you learn a lot of lessons along the way. This one has a really good, solid baseline to it. It's this story that seems like you're watching this girl kind of like flounder around and be nonsensical, and then it kind of hits you really hard. There's just a lot of like realistic slap in the face, cold hard truths in this film, and I found it just totally it took the wind out of me. I thought that it was wild. The stylization is beautiful. It's the whole idea of like the social media aspect. There's so much going on, but it's such a powerful message. And if you have not seen it, watch it. It is funny and it is dark. And those are my favorite things. Talking about funny and dark, there was one film this year that as soon as I saw it, I'm like, game over. Game over for possibly like the last couple of years to me. Like this film. Love it. Love it. 5-star instantly. It's called Triangle of Sadness. And again, this is a film that's not out widely in Australia yet, and it will be out in a couple of weeks. It's so hard to keep up with that. But this film is phenomenal. Phenomenal. And I thought, oh God, this film's gonna be long, but I had no idea. I had no idea the journey it was going to take me on. This is directed by the Swedish filmmaker Ruben Östlund. Hope I pronounced that right. And it's, again, another genre-bending drama black comedy. It's about an influencer fashion model couple who join an eventful cruise for the super rich. I had just watched Below Deck. If you haven't seen Below Deck, it really does aid in this experience. Very weird footnote there, but it really does. The film is about them going on this yacht. So it's about the yacht crew, and it's this interesting layered story. Once again, it's kind of in 3 parts, I should say, about the relationship between the couple and then how that works with the people around them and what it says about the different classes of the people on the boat. There is a lot that happens in this film. I cannot stress to you enough. A lot. And just when you think, okay, wow, we're coming to the climax, you would be wrong. You would be very wrong. What I love about this film is it was utterly captivating. I could not take my eyes off the screen. I was also audibly in shock. I'm so glad I watched this by myself because I was gasping, I was swearing, I was laughing, cackling out loud. I just had the biggest reaction to this film. I felt it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And also quite sad in a dark but realistic way. But the ultimate thing about this film is, like movies like The Menu, I felt like it's a very simple story, which it's a great film, but it was a very simple story. This film was so entertaining, so funny, so disgusting, but then also so deep and so layered, and actually had something to say about society and said it in the most eloquent way. And the ending of this film, oh my gosh, I absolutely love this film. I thought it was fantastic. One of the best films I've ever seen. Honestly, I love this film. If you like dark comedy and films that have a lot to say about social issues as well, which is what this film is about, you get everything. It's like a full meal all in one for this movie. You probably won't want to eat while you watch it though, just a fair warning. So those are my top 10. I do have just a little bit of shout outs I want to do really quickly. These are the ones that were really close runners up. The Wonder with Florence Pugh, that's on Netflix. It's like a thriller. It's a mystery, very compelling stuff. The Batman nearly made the cut. He was real close. I really enjoyed The Batman, which you'll never see me have a superhero movie on one of these lists. I don't know. We don't know about that, but The Batman did come really close. I really, really enjoyed that movie. Speaking of wildness, Weird Al, the Weird Al story, loved it. I thought it was genius. I wouldn't have put it in my top 10, I don't think. It would have been at the bottom of all of these ones, but I just thought it was really genius for what they did. I think it was really compelling. I thought it was really funny, and just, I love that this film exists. I love it, and I think everyone should go watch it. And then lastly, on the count of 3, I really love this film, and it would have been on this list, honestly. I wanted more. It only went for 1 hour and 28 minutes. If you haven't seen it, it is a devastating story about 2 friends who it's about 2 friends with depression. Let's just say that. It's very intense, and I don't really want to spoil it because it's quite short. And yeah, once you know the punchline, that's kind of it. So yeah, really enjoyed it, but just too short. I could not believe that the lead guy was the director as well. Like, that blew my mind. Anyway, so those are my runners up. But thank you so much for watching. That was really fun, and thank you so much for listening to me talk about non-horror movies. I do watch a lot of non-horror movies. If you watch my wrap-ups, you'd know that, and my wrap-up is coming up. I'm about to watch Avatar tonight, so there'll be things to talk about. But I hope you're having a fantastic day. Thank you so much for being here. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel, I do 2 videos every single week, talking about horror movies, talking about thriller movies, talking about disturbing movies, putting a lot on your to-watch list. So if you're looking for stuff that you want to binge right now at home, I'm your gal. And I also put out videos every single month telling you what's coming to VOD, all that good stuff. So if you're looking for recommendations, hit that subscribe button, and if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, and I'll talk to you all very soon. Stay safe and stay spooky. We'll get more spooky next time. Okay, bye friends.